The key element with building a career, the absolute key element, is go to what you love to do. Oh my. If you're forcing yourself down into places that you don't like to write, or you don't want to go there, or you don't like doing this, or this is no fun, or this is a drag, just stop. That has no longevity to it at all. Yeah, eventually, if you're an artist and creative person like everybody probably watching this is, holy smokes, will you break out of that silliness, and explode away. And so all you're doing is setting yourself up for a gigantic either explosion or failure at some point. The key early on is go to what you love. Now, when I started to rebuild, as I said in the last one here, what I loved is short fiction and shorter novels, novels that could have come out and been perfectly fine in the 60s and 70s. The 50,000 word novel. That's the length I like to read. That's the length I like to write. But I have 100 novels published in New York, and most of them were 65 to 100,000 words because I was forced by contract to do that. But now that I don't have that kind of contract, I have control. I'm going back to what I love. That's the key. You have to make that same decision. I love short fiction. I love writing short stories. I just like the whole feel of it. I like the length. I like having it done. I have the whole aspect of it. I just like everything about writing them and everything about having them. I often just write one. In the old days when I knew, no one was going to buy it, I'd write one of my stories just for fun. I'd spend a night or so writing one of my stories, and then I'd put it in a drawer. I'm still finding those now that we're into the indie world. I'm still finding stories that I have put away that I look at and go, when did I write that? Well, it was one day back in 1990, whatever, that I sat down and said, oh, this is a fun idea, and I wrote a story, and then, of course, I just threw it in a drawer. Sometimes I didn't even have Chris read them. I just tossed them in drawers. So it's just one of those things that I love. So when I'm reinventing my career here, as you're inventing your career and being original in your career, go to what you love. That is the key with. Go to what you're comfortable with. Go to what you can see yourself still doing and having fun with 5 years from now. Now, I'm not saying that you're not going to be uncomfortable when you're learning and things like that, but if you want control, go to control. That's the real key. How much or how little? Ask yourself, how much or how little control do you really, really need? Really need. If you need a lot of control, well, then indie publishing is for you. And learning how to do your own covers and learning how to lay out your own books. You got control of every aspect. Who you pick as a proofreader. You have control of that. If they're not doing a good job, you find another proofreader. If your desire is to just type and release and you don't flat care what happens, then send it to traditional publishing, because you're going to give over all the control, and at that point in time you get what you get. And if you got a bad proofer, you live with a bad proofer. If you got a bad cover, you live with a bad cover. You don't have any control in New York. So you have to, when you're looking at this, because you have choices in this new world. It's a great new world for writers. It's absolutely wonderful. Because for the first time in decades, first time since basically about 1950, we have choices. We have choices. The choices have been returned to us as writers. And oh my. So those of us who are control freaks, like I am, about my own writing, I want to know what's going on. I want to have control of the proofer. I don't want them touching that kind of sentence because there's a reason for that sentence was in there. Da 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 da. I want the covers to look a certain way. I like what I'm doing in this indie publishing and having my own company here. I mean, I'm the co-owner of WMG Publishing. Makes complete sense. I don't run WMG Publishing. Allison does. She's the publisher. She runs it. She runs it like a regular publishing company. And we got 7 or 8 employees running around here doing the work. Most of it on my books or Chris's books. But we control it. If we don't like the way something's done, guess what? We get to change it. Yay, control. But if you're not a control freak, then you have other options. If you want to send them off and have your story, have somebody else completely deal with your story. If you don't like the idea of being in control, then do it. When you look at the bestsellers out there, like Stephen King, Nora Roberts, Dean Koontz, Michael Connelly. Wow, do you see 4 completely different human beings across those 4? Michael Connelly, you'll actually see on talk shows. He actually does the talk show circuit. Kuntz, Nora, not a chance. I mean, Nora doesn't even hardly like to leave her house. She doesn't even like it. Sometimes she actually makes a joke about when her husband's at home. They bought a bookstore so her husband could go run a bookstore because she didn't want him in the house while she was typing in her third floor office. King, very private. You know, used to love to be on motorcycles. Would go out for walks, which is where he got hit by a car. But you know, he would go on motorcycle trips. His daughter was going to school in Portland. He lived in Maine, Portland, Oregon. And he would ride a motorcycle cross country and come and see her and be around, and very seldom does readings and almost never does signings, things like that. Has his own way of doing things. He's settled in his own ways. Did they have crashes along the way? Oh, good heavens, yes. Oh my. The monster crash when Nora left Harlequin? Silhouette. Oh, phew. King? The drug crash? Oh, you guys, if you study these people, you're amazing. Kuntz, very private individual. Writes his books, writes under, at one point he had 12 published pen names. That's as bad as I am, for heaven's sakes. I mean, because we just like to write. Kuntz likes to write. So he was publishing all over the place in the old world, just like I was. The reality is that, you know, he's very private. He writes his books. There's all kinds of rumors about whether he has others' pen names still functioning on the bestseller list or not. You know, he just doesn't go out. He doesn't do anything. He has a big house down on overlooking the beach in California, Southern California. So, you know, you just look at these different kinds of writers and their different methods of doing things. They have gone to what they are comfortable with. To find originality in careers, you first have to ask and check in with yourself and be honest with yourself. Clear out all that, oh, I've got to. No, you don't got to do nothing. You just got to be you. That's the real key.